There's a pencil line on the pad beside my keyboard that I can't bring myself to throw away because I know what it is now. A shed stack of honeycomb sheets, and in the topmost one, electrons crossing my handwriting at one fixed clip with no mass to their name. That was the homework and I did it, but George wouldn't let us leave last time. He ended with a confession. In this entire series, no electron has ever truly seen another. The only conversation between electrons in anything we've built has been Pauli's seat bookkeeping. That bench is taken, sit elsewhere. Polite, silent, free of charge. And then he named the price of ending the silence. Parking on an already occupied site costs extra, a fee, and the fee has a name, you. Turn it on, he said, and there are crystals that every picture we've drawn insists should conduct, and they refuse. Flatly, stubbornly. That's a proper villain, and today it walks through the door. George, do the electrons finally stop ignoring each other?
They stop ignoring each other today, and here's the shape of the show. First we go home, all the way back to the one-lane chain from the very first episode. Deliberately, we're about to stage the hardest physics this series has touched, so we want the simplest arena in the subject. We keep one old friend, the hop, exactly as it has always been. We add exactly one new number, the phi, charged when two electrons squeeze onto the same site. Two numbers, one chain, and out of that little sentence comes today's whole cast. A crystal that freezes solid with every road open. A magnet assembled with no magnetic force anywhere in the model. A family of materials the whole field still argues about. And, before we're done, photographs of nearly all of it, atom by atom.
Hold on. Home? Last episode's finale was a warning nailed to that exact door. The one-lane road is the most fragile place in physics to build. Dirt traps every wave on it, and escaping to sheets and blocks wasn't tourism, it was survival. Why march us straight back down the lane we just escaped?
Because the phi is a local creature. It lives on one site at a time, and it doesn't need extra directions to show its teeth. Everything it does today, it does on sheets and in blocks too. The chain is just where the pictures stay small enough to hold in one hand. And there's a quieter reason. The chain is where this series knows every floorboard. When the new ingredient breaks something, and it will break something we crowned, I want you certain the break came from the ingredient, not from some corner we never explored. So, the first episode's chain, verbatim, sites, hops, the cosine band, plus one addition.
Then before you write a single term, give me the addition as furniture. I don't want the phi as a symbol yet. I want to know what it feels like to be an electron paying it.
Here's the furniture. Picture a dinner party down an endless table, one chair per site, and tonight every chair is taken. A guest who wants to wander has exactly one option. Go sit on somebody's lap. And at this party, laps aren't free. Sitting on an occupied lap costs real money. That's the house rule, and the lap price is the fee. Behind the furniture, the physics is blunt. Electrons carry like charges, and like charges repel. Squeeze two of them onto one atom, into the same little well, and they shove against each other hard. The fee is that shove written as an energy, the surcharge for double occupancy of a single site. It was always there in real crystals. Our drawings just set it to nothing.
Let me keep my furniture straight, because this show already owns seating. In the C episode, every allowed twist was a bench with exactly 2 seats. That was Pauli's rule, 1 electron per seat, no sharing, ever. And those benches lived in twist space. Tonight's chairs are the atoms themselves, real places on the chain. But here's what's nagging me. Pauli never billed anyone. The bench rule was bookkeeping. That seat's taken, sit elsewhere, and it worked for free. So what's genuinely new? Doesn't Pauli already forbid 2 electrons from doubling up on one site?
Only half of the doublings, and saying which half sharpens both rules at once. An electron carries spin, up or down, the internal arrow with exactly 2 settings, from the show's spin episode, the beam that's split in 2. Pauli forbids 2 identical fermions from sharing a state, so 2 up electrons on one site, identical twins in the same place, is a configuration that does not exist. Not expensive, non-existent. The fee never even gets to see it. But an up and a down on the same site are not identical, and Pauli waves that pair through without comment. That's the doubling that exists, and that's the doubling the fee bills. So hold the 2 rules side by side. Pauli is a law about which configurations exist at all, and it costs nothing, free bookkeeping. The fee is a price on a configuration that genuinely exists, a real bill, paid in energy. One draws the menu, the other puts a price on it.
Then say the whole model out loud. If it's really just the table and the lap rule, I should be able to hold every term in my head at once.
You'll hold it with room to spare, because there are 2 terms. Term 1, the hop. The first episode's Hamiltonian, untouched. Each electron leaks to its neighboring sites with the same amplitude as always. Nothing about the fee retunes it. Term 2, the fee. Walk down the chain, site by site, and every site currently holding 2 electrons, an up and a down, adds 1 fee, U, to the energy. That's the entire model. 2 terms, 2 numbers, the hop and the fee. The old rent just sets the 0 and drops out. Physicists call it the Hubbard model, and I'd argue it's the simplest sentence you can write about electrons that actually see each other. Everything this series has built so far, bands, seas, gaps, cones, is the special case of this sentence with the fee set to nothing.
And then the whole model is one contest, isn't it? 2 numbers means 1 comparison, the fee against the hop. A dial running from fee tiny to fee enormous. Start it low for me, fee barely above nothing. My guess is we get all our old furniture back, or every episode before this one is in trouble.
You get it all back. With the fee tiny, the sea rolls on just as the sea episode drew it, and it's worth seeing what that rolling sea looks like, site by site. The waves overlap freely, so doubled sites happen constantly. An up and a down sharing an atom for a moment as their waves pass through each other. Each doubling now skims a little energy, but the skim is small next to the reward the hop pays for spreading out, so the electrons shrug and keep rolling. Band theory survives with mild retuning. Everything from the first episodes stands. Then crank the dial the other way, fee towering over hop, and you cross into a new world. And the sharpest place to watch the crossing is a head count this series knows by heart. Each atom donates 1 electron.
1 electron per atom. Sodium's count, the recipe that gave us our first metal. The half-filled band, the live shoreline, current from the gentlest push. But let me run that count through the dinner table before you run it through anything else. The fee lives on sites, so sites are the right language the moment it rules. 1 electron per site means every chair down the table holds exactly 1 guest, singly taken, wall to wall. Now ask any guest to move. 1 step, either direction. The destination chair is occupied. There isn't an empty chair on the entire table, so every possible move is a lap, and every lap costs the fee. If the fee is a fortune, no move pays for itself. The crowd sits. The very count that made sodium a metal makes this crystal a statue. No current at all.
That's the argument, and it deserves its ledger, so let's price it properly. Start from the half-filled crystal. 1 electron per site, no site doubled, so the fee column of the energy bill reads nothing at all. Now perform a single hop, any electron, 1 step. Its old site stands empty, its new site holds 2. The bill just went up by exactly one fee, and that's unavoidable accounting. When every chair is singly taken, Motion manufactures a doubled site and an empty site as a pair every single time. And what does Motion pay back? The hop's reward, the energy an electron saves by spreading out, the whole physics of the first episode's minus sign. And the size of that reward is set by the hop itself. The band is only as wide as the hopping makes it. So the trade on the table reads, pay one fee, earn something of order one hop. When the fee dwarfs the hop, that trade never pays, not for one electron, and not for any clever chain of moves you can dream up.
And wait, a whole class of those moves were dead before the fee even showed up. You taught me that before the dial ever moved. If my neighbour's spin is parallel to mine, hopping onto them would build two identical fermions on one site, the configuration that doesn't exist. Pauli kills that move outright, no bill required. So the fee only ever prices the moves toward opposite spin neighbours. And now you've priced those out of reach too.
Both doors shut. One by law, one by price. Toward a parallel neighbour, no move exists. Toward an opposite neighbour, the move exists and costs a fee no electron can earn back. So charge goes nowhere. Picture it as traffic. Every road on the map is open. The hops are still in the model, still connecting every site to its neighbours. Every car is fueled, and the whole city stands at a dead stop because every parking spot is taken and stacking cars costs a fortune. Frozen traffic on open roads. Now say what this thing is, because it violates the proudest rule band theory owns. A half-filled band, the guaranteed metal of the Motion episode, the live shoreline, insulating. That rule is dead, and the crystal that killed it has a name, a Mott insulator.
Let me stack what broke next to what didn't, because the split is the strangest part. Everything terrain-shaped survives. The band still exists, the cosine curve, the twists, the zone, none of it changed. And one electron alone on this chain would glide exactly as the first episode drew. What broke is the crowd's use of the terrain. The menu of waves is all still there. Nobody can afford the moves that would use it. Our old materials map sorted crystals by counting seats against electrons, and it never once asked whether the crowd could pay to rearrange itself. This failure was invisible to every drawing we've made, because every drawing was secretly a one-electron drawing.
Now the scope. Because the villain doesn't own every half-filled crystal, most of the metals this series has ever named are perfectly safe. Remember the two shores from the pincer episode. On the nearly free shore, sodium, copper, the bands are broad, which means the hop is big. Electrons spread easily, and a doubled site comes cheap next to the reward. There the hop wins the tug-of-war, the sea rolls, and band theory holds its ground. Your wall outlet works tonight for the old reasons. Mott country is the opposite shore, the tight binding shore. Deep wells, rare hops, narrow bands. Small hop against the same fee, so the fee towers. And you already own the knob that walks between the shores, from that same episode. Deepen the wells and hops go rare. Half filling plus a narrow band, that's the villain's home address.
Does nature actually stock that shore? Give me the crystal that forced people to believe this. The one-band theory keeps getting wrong.
The classic is nickel oxide. Count its electrons the way this series has counted everything, and band theory hands back a partly filled band and a confident verdict. Metal. The real crystal is an insulator, and stubbornly so, not marginally. It simply does not conduct the way the drawing demands. Its relevant electrons sit close to their atoms, narrow bands, the tight binding shore, a small hop, and the fee wins. Nothing is broken inside it, and no amount of purifying changes the verdict, because the crystal isn't misbehaving. It's obeying a rule our drawings never contained. I'm keeping it qualitative on purpose, because the point isn't nickel oxide's private details. The point is that the freeze is real. It sits on shelves, and for a long stretch of the subject's history, it stared band theory in the face, while band theory went on calling it a metal.
Now the toll. An insulator refuses a gentle push because moving charge costs something the push can't pay. The diatomic chain taught us that, and there the toll was a gap. Daylight in the terrain, pried open at a zone edge. Two standing waves paying two different rents. So, show me this insulator's crease. Where did the fee cut into the band? My guess is along the old shoreline again. The diatomic gap opened exactly across the metal's busiest seats, and I'd bet the fee does its cutting in the same place.
Hunt for that crease, and you'll come home empty-handed. The terrain hasn't grown so much as a dimple. That's the deepest sentence of the day, so stand on it with me. Every gap this series has ever opened, deep wells against shallow ones, dips against ridges, was a fact about the terrain. The menu of waves a single electron could ride, drawn before any crowd arrived. Put one electron on today's chain, phi and all, and it sees the plain old cosine band. No gap, no crease, nothing forbidden, because a lone electron never doubles a site, so it never meets the phi. This toll exists only because the crowd does. To move charge through the half-filled crystal, somebody must double up. That first forced double up, and its cost is the phi itself. So there is a real energy toll for conduction, and in this model, the toll is the phi. It's called the Mott gap, and the name to carry beside it is what it is not. It is not a band gap. It's a many-body toll booth, staffed by the crowd, not a missing rung of terrain. Drain the crowd away, and the booth vanishes with it.
So the ledger of gaps has split in two, and I want both columns said once. Column 1, terrain gaps, the diatomic chain's daylight, the creases the hum pried open. Properties of the empty stage. An electron alone feels them, and they'd still be there whether the crystal held one electron or none. Column 2, the Mott gap, a toll levied by electrons on electrons. An electron alone feels nothing. This gap exists only while the crowd is standing in the room. Same symptom at the meter, no current from a gentle push, and two completely different tolls underneath it.
Filed exactly right. And now the freeze itself needs an asterisk, because I've let the word frozen pass a few times, and it oversells. What's frozen is charge. No electron travels, and the traffic picture is true as stated. But the electrons are not statues. Down inside the frozen crystal, something is still happening. Quiet, ceaseless, and it decides the rest of the day. The electrons lean.
Lean? We spent half the show closing every exit. Parallel moves don't exist. Opposite moves cost a fortune nobody can earn back. What's left that isn't a move?
A visit. Quantum mechanics doesn't deal only in permanent relocations. A state is allowed to lean into a configuration it could never afford to keep. You've seen a state do this before. The tilted molecule's ground state kept a minority share on the dear well, and that little mixing dug its energy lower. The lean is that minority share resurrected. Picture the guest at the frozen table, forbidden from changing chairs for good, but able to tip toward the neighbor for a blink, a hop onto the neighbor's site and straight back, too brief to settle. A borrowed moment. For the span of the lean, the crystal is in the expensive doubled configuration, and it hands that configuration back before it ever has to live there. The fee price is settling, it cannot stop visiting, and the visit is not without consequence. A state that can reach into its expensive options, even briefly, shifts its own energy by doing so. That shift is where the rest of the episode lives.
Then that's the piece I need slower, because the trip ends exactly where it began. Same guest, same chair, nothing moved, nothing to see. What did a round trip buy?
It bought room, and the first episode planted the seed. Spreading out is what the hop rewards. That was the entire physics of the minus sign. amplitude shared between neighbors lowering the energy. A lean is spreading in miniature. For that borrowed moment, the electron's state keeps a toehold next door, and the toehold lowers its energy, a little. Now, how little? You can hear it in the shape of the trip. The trip has two legs, out and back, and each leg is one use of the hop. So the hop enters twice, multiplied by itself, the hop squared. And the whole excursion runs against the fee. The doubled midpoint is the expensive configuration, and the deeper the fee, the more grudging the visit and the smaller the reward. Divide by the fee. Say it in the binding order so the ear can't misplace it. Take the hop, square it, then divide by the fee. That's the discount each allowed lean earns. The exact bookkeeping behind that sentence is standard machinery for a later, harder day. The borrowed moment carries everything we need. Small hop, faint lean. Huge fee, faint lean. But never nothing.
Then every electron in the frozen crystal is quietly collecting discounts from its neighbors, and suddenly the spins have stakes, because you flagged at the freeze that spin decides which doors even exist. So the chain gets to choose a spin pattern, and the pattern that harvests the biggest total discount should win. And I know magnets. Magnets align. Every compass needle I've ever held wants to agree with its neighbor, and a fridge magnet is a whole crowd of agreeing spins. So I'll bet the chain does what magnets do. Everyone up, one long line of agreement.
And Pauli is standing at that neighbor's door. He cancels the bet before the fee gets any say at all. Watch the lean toward a parallel neighbor in slow motion. The midpoint of the visit is a doubled sight holding two identical spins. That configuration doesn't exist, not pricey, non-existent, so there is nothing to lean into. The visit never begins, and the discount is denied outright. Now the lean toward an opposite spin neighbor. The doubled midpoint is an up and a down. That exists, merely expensive, and expensive is exactly what a borrowed moment can afford. Visit allowed, discount paid, the hop squared over the fee. So read the ledger the way the electrons read it. A parallel neighbor earns you nothing. An opposite neighbor pays you a small, steady discount. Every electron in the crystal prefers neighbors that disagree with it.
Then the pattern writes itself down the chain. If everyone wants disagreeing neighbors, the chain can satisfy every single electron at once. Up, down, alternating forever. Each electron flanked by disagreement on both sides, every bond earning its discount. And my all-up line collects nothing anywhere, the worst harvest on the table. What do you call a magnet built out of perfect disagreement?
An antiferromagnet. And it is a magnet, just one that hides. Picture a row of compass needles settling toward alternation. Up, down, each needle genuinely magnetized, and the row summing to nothing, every needle cancelled by its neighbors. It won't lift a paperclip. From across the room, it looks like no magnet at all. The fridge magnets you know are the other family. Ferromagnets, needles aligned. And their agreement comes from a different mechanism, and that story stays outside. Because here's what deserves the room instead. There is no magnetic force anywhere in this model. Go back and audit the two terms. A hop and an electric fee, charge shoving against charge. Add Pauli's rule about what exists, and out falls magnetic order, a crystal of arranged spins. In this crystal, magnetism is what electric repulsion looks like after Pauli has finished with it. Nobody put a magnet in. The door rule and the fee built one.
Here's the picture I'm filing away, in the order it has to be stored. First, the freeze. 1 electron per site, every move a lap, the fee dwarfing the hop, so charge stands still on open roads. Then the correction, the freeze needed. Frozen never meant motionless. Each electron endlessly pays visits it can't extend, out and back inside a borrowed moment. Then the door. Pauli turns away every parallel visit and admits every opposite one. And then the order. Disagreement pays, agreement doesn't. So the chain settles into up, down, up, down. The villain froze our metal, and then, out of the same fee, built a hidden magnet from the wreckage.
One more property of that order, because it decides what the laboratory will have to do. It's faint. Its entire budget is the discount, the hop squared over the fee. And in Mott country, the fee towers, so the budget is small. Warmth far gentler than the fee, warmth that couldn't unfreeze a single unit of charge, can still shake the needles out of their pattern. So the alternating order is a fragile crown sitting on top of a sturdy frieze. Hold that. It sets the price of a photograph later. And notice that everything since the dial turned has leaned on an exact head count. Half filling, 1 electron per site, no more, no fewer. That's a knife edge. The obvious next question is what happens when we step off it.
Then let me step off it at the dinner table first. Pull a few guests out, a few electrons gone. Now there are empty chairs down the table and everything changes, because a neighbour can slide into an empty chair. No lap, no fee, no doubling anywhere, just a move. And once they've slid, the chair they left stands empty, so the next guest slides into that. The vacancy itself walks the table. I've met this character, the motion episode's theatre row. The crowd shuffles one way and the empty seat glides the other, one tidy object. So a doped Mott insulator should conduct again, and conduct without ever paying the fee?
Conducts again, fee never touched. The slide is the mechanism, and it's why doping is the key that unlocks Mott country. Pull electrons out, and the crystal you froze flows again. The holes carry charge from chair to chair, and no configuration along the way ever doubles a site. But it is not the old innocent sea coming back, and here's the difference. The crowd those holes walk through is ordered. Up, down, up, down. Watch one slide closely. The guest who moves brings their own spin into a spot the alternation had assigned to the opposite one. Run a hole down the chain and it leaves a wake. Stretches where neighbours now agree, exactly what the pattern didn't want. Each hole drags a disturbance of the spin pattern behind it. So charge moves, but every carrier wades through the magnet it's scrambling. Conduction through a crowd still ordered, every move tangled with its neighbours. Nothing like the free sea of our early episodes.
And where does reality serve that? Lightly doped Mott country, holes wading through a hidden magnet. Is there a crystal on a shelf that lives exactly there?
The most argued over crystals in modern physics live right there. The copper-oxide materials. Undoped, they are the story we just told, sitting on a shelf. Mott insulators wearing the alternating spin order. Dope them lightly, pull out a modest share of their electrons, and they don't merely conduct. They superconduct, current with no resistance at all, at record warm temperatures, which is the whole reason the world noticed. And how they do it, what the holes and the scrambled spin pattern conspire to build, is still argued about, at full volume, by the people who know the most about it. So I'm handing you the location, not the mechanism, because the mechanism isn't settled.
Then it's time for the lab thread, because this feels like the exact moment the series built it for. When the chalkboard runs out, build the model and watch it. The machines of light. The optical lattice gave us the chain, the laser gave us the hop. But the fee is electron against electron. Where does a cloud of neutral atoms find a U?
Nature supplies it. Put two atoms into the same well of an optical lattice and they collide. Genuinely shove against each other, a real repulsion with a real energy cost. Sharing a well is expensive. That's the fee, played by a collision instead of electric charge, and it's just as real. And the dial? You've owned it since the pincer episode. Laser depth. Ease the lasers down, shallow wells, easy hops. and the hop wins. Banned physics, the rolling sea. Crank them up, deep wells, hops gone rare, and the fee, which only sharpens as the wells squeeze the colliding pair tighter, towers over the collapsing hop. Deep lattice, small hop, fee wins. The entire tug-of-war on one handle, turned by hand in an afternoon. And laying out a sheet instead of a chain is just more laser beams. Remember that. It's about to matter.
And the photograph. The C episode ended with the quantum gas microscope photographing exclusion itself. The middle of the cloud flattened into a plateau of filled sites, the sharp, cold edge. What does that same camera see when you crank the depth and let the fee take over?
It sees the freeze, site by site. Load the lattice with the right head count, crank the dial, and the image locks. 1 atom per site, wall to wall. No doubled sites, no empty ones. The occupancy pinned at exactly 1. The fluctuations a rolling sea would show priced out of the frame. That's the Mott plateau, frozen traffic, photographed. The C episode's plateau was Pauli's doing. This flat top is the fees. Same camera, different enforcer. And then the harder prize, the one the fragile crown set up. Cool the gas much further. Cold enough that warmth stops shaking the needles. Cold on the scale of the discount's tiny budget, which is the expensive part, and image the spins themselves. A checkerboard appears. Up, down, across the sheet, site by site. The alternating order we derived from a door rule and a borrowed moment sitting in a photograph. Both pictures exist. Real machines have taken both. The freeze and the hidden magnet, imaged atom by atom.
One cousin before the summit because the singing lattice drew a line down the middle of the particle world. Our electrons and their kin on one side, no sharing ever, and on the other side, the pile lovers, bosons, any number in one state, phonons, photons. If you load pile-loving atoms into the same lattice and turn the same dial, what happens to particles that never heard of Pauli?
The freeze catches them anyway, because the fee never needed Pauli. Start with a shallow lattice, and the pile lovers do the most bosonic thing imaginable. They pile into one flowing state, the whole cloud moving as a single coordinated wave, a superfluid, flow without friction. Now crank the depth. The hop shrinks, the collision fee towers, and doubling up anywhere becomes a luxury the cloud can't afford. With the matching head count, the flow freezes into 1 atom per site, locked and countable. A Mott freeze for bosons. Same dial, same fee, and no exclusion anywhere in the story. That crossing, free-flowing pile into frozen lattice was among the first great showpieces of these machines. And it sharpens the lesson. Pauli was nowhere in that room, and the fee froze matter anyway.
Now, the summit, because I've been holding this since you told me to remember the sheet, this model is 2 terms, a hop and a fee. Everything else this series built, bands, seas, gaps, cones, surrendered to a chalkboard inside a single episode. Why does a model this small need a laboratory at all? Why hasn't somebody simply solved it and settled the copper-oxide argument?
Because in 2 dimensions, nobody has. The Hubbard model on a sheet, the same 2-term sentence we wrote at the top of the show, has never been solved. Its full phase map, what it does at every filling and every setting of the dial, is one of the great open problems of physics. And the region everyone wants most, lightly doped Mott country, where the copper oxides superconduct, is exactly where the methods of calculating have fought each other hardest. Now put the pieces together. An optical lattice loaded with cold atoms is the Hubbard model. Not a metaphor for it. The fee is a real collision, the hop is real tunneling, the sheet is real laser geometry, and the microscope reads the state out site by site. When the mathematics won't yield, you can build the Hamiltonian itself and ask it directly. That's why the plateau and the checkerboard matter. They're answer sheets, arriving from a machine, for a problem no chalkboard has cracked.
Then here's the whole day, told back as the pictures I'll keep. A dinner table with every chair taken, where wandering means sitting on a lap, and laps cost real money. The fee, the one new number, joining the hop to make the simplest sentence about electrons that see each other. One dial between them, fee tiny, our whole old world survives. Fee towering, at 1 electron per site, the traffic freezes on open roads. A half-filled band that insulates, the Mott insulator, band theory's proudest rule dead on the narrowband shore. Its toll isn't terrain, the Mott gap is the fee itself, a toll booth staffed by the crowd. Frozen was never still, the electrons lean, borrowed moments past Pauli at the door, each opposite spin visit worth the hop, squared, over the fee. And the leaning orders the chain into alternating needles, a magnet built from repulsion and bookkeeping. Empty chairs unfreeze it into something correlated and strange, which is where the copper-oxides live. And a lattice of light runs the entire story on a laser dial, photographing the plateau and the checkerboard, 1 atom per site.
And notice what the day did and didn't do to this series. Band theory was not overthrown. On its own shore, broad bands, big hops, every word of the first episode stands, and your copper wire conducts tonight for the reasons the motion episode gave. What today did is draw band theory's border. Its quiet assumption, the fee set to nothing, was load-bearing, and on the narrow-band shore it snaps. Past the border, live freezes, hidden magnets, and materials the field is still fighting over. 2 numbers were enough to hold both worlds and the border between them. You'd think that would be the chain's last surprise. It isn't. There's one more, and it doesn't need the fee at all.
No fee? We just spent the entire day learning that the fee is where the new physics lives. Switch it off, and we're back on the bare chain of the first episode. 1 band, 1 twist axis, every note of it mapped. What could possibly be left in there?
One thing we never once touched. Every pattern this series has stamped onto the chain, we stamped onto the sides. The diatomic chain alternated well depths. The singing lattice alternated masses. We have never touched the bonds. So here's the move. Fee off atoms identical, and let the hops themselves take turns. Strong hop, weak hop. Strong, weak, down the whole chain. The connections wearing the pattern instead of the places. A gap opens. After this series, you could nearly draw that part yourself. The surprise is where the new physics ends up living, at the ends of the chain. Cut the chain and something appears at the cut. A state sitting exactly in the middle of the gap, at an energy the terrain flatly forbids, and it refuses to die. Dirty the chain, the same dirt that trapped every travelling wave in the escape episode, and it refuses to leave. Jiggle the hops, roughen every strength, keep the strong, weak rhythm. Still there. A survivor the terrain can't explain and disorder can't kill, living on the edge of the crystal. Next time, the chain with an edge.
A state parked where states are forbidden, shrugging off the dirt that killed everything else on the line. After today, I know better than to bet against this chain. Here's the homework until then. Somewhere in your kitchen there's a fridge magnet. Stick it on, and as it grabs, remember the family it hides. Crystals full of needles just as magnetized, arranged to cancel perfectly. Magnets built from nothing but electric repulsion and a rule about what exists, hiding in plain sight. Then come back for the chain that grew an edge. Thanks, everyone.